Okay, I'm starting now. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Birchal's Investor Q&R webinar today. Before I introduce our founders, I'm just going to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we are zooming to you on, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. My name's Mel, I'm the campaign manager here at Birchal, and today we have Nadarra Health, a medicinal cannabis company, and we have our founders with us, Neil Bates and David Hartley. And before I introduce them and their presentation, I just wanted to run you through how it's going to go today. So we're going to have a quick presentation from the guys, 15 minutes roughly, and then we're going to go into a Q&A. So everybody who's on this webinar, please put your questions in the Q&A while David and Neil are presenting, and then we'll get to those at the end. So thank you, welcome, and over to you both.
Hi, I'm Neil Bates, and next to me is David Hartley. I'm going to share the screen there. Window. Yeah. Okay, so you do that one for me.
Yeah.
So I'm Neil Bates. My history is in Australia. I've had a more or less a CPAP company for the last 10 years, so home medical devices. Some synergies with the cannabis industry, the medicinal cannabis industry, in that it's ARTG listed medical equipment, and there's difficulties around that. But I started off small on eBay really, and built a company up for 10 years doing that. But margins have slimmed, and I saw a better opportunity over here in medicinal cannabis. Before that, I was in engineering for Dunlop and Michelin, which led me into product marketing around Asia. And I'll hand you over to David, and he can tell you about his experience.
Thanks, Neil. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm David Hartley. I've spent the majority of my career working in global pharmaceuticals across the globe, companies such as CSL, Australia-based, GSK, Pfizer, Cochlear as well, working in most of the what I would describe as sophisticated regulated markets such as Australia, the EU, USA, and also based out of Asia Pac for a number of years. Main areas I've covered have been operations, clinical supply, QA, quality assurance rather, as well as R&D and technical transfers. So a long history in the regulated pharma industry. I've got deep experience with the majority of the regulators around the world. I've met most of them from various countries, but particularly FDA, TGA, and European legislation, where medicinal cannabis is growing rapidly. My expertise lies in manufacturing and supply chain. I have a PhD in chemistry, and I also have some good strong ties now throughout the academic world, and as well as industry and government, which will greatly help Nadarra as we progress down the path of developing IP. I'll pass you back to Neil.
Okay, so this is how we see the medicinal cannabis market in Australia presently, the market that we're operating in. We've mostly taken our figures from the Pennington Institute, because those guys analyze this all the time and seem to be the most credible source that we could find. And when we started in 2023, a couple of years ago, we thought the market was around 400 million at that point, medicinal cannabis. And by now it's just ticking over 1 billion. And by 2030, it's expected to be over 4 billion, which is a CAGR, or an annual growth rate of almost 30%, 29.9%. And it's really been driven by patient demand, the prescriber access. Everyone will be aware of all the online clinics popping up and people getting scripts by telehealth. And it's thought that there's 1 million Australians who are using cannabis presently. And another good thing about Australia is, well, it's difficult for us, but it's good for the product, is that the regulations are strong and tight, and that gives us a very good reputation overseas. So if we ever want to hit the export market, the product is perceived as being very, very good and well controlled. So this is a roadmap of where we started from and where we're going. So it was the start of 23. We got into this. We spent a lot of time navigating the the regulatory landscape, which was difficult and onerous, but successfully got through that. And we launched our first product, which was called Green Genie, or is called Green Genie. We're just coming to the end of the first batch of that now, but that's sold really well. It was a high strength, or is a high strength sativa, 28%, very high in terpenes, very well received in the market, did really well. To sell that, we did distribution deals with all the main players that we could find, Leafio, who's Montu, Health House International more recently, Alternaleaf, Cannabis Warehouse, and the Entourage Effect. So we had to get our distribution plan in place. And then I think a bit of feedback we got was that, or that we realized, was that most of the market in Australia skews towards indica product. We had a sativa product, which is more niche. We think 80% of the market is indica product. And we sourced that from the same grower who's an organic craft grower in Canada, excellent Plantation Ceres, they're called, excellent product. And we sourced a product called Indica Jones from them. We got that bottled a couple of months ago, or ready to ship. And we've had a month of selling that now on top of Green Genie. And we're working on our third SKU, which will be a gummy. There's been a big shift in the market to edibles. Everybody can see that. And we're going to start with a 10-10-5. So 10 THC, 10 milligrams THC, 10 milligrams CBD, and 5 milligrams CBG, which we think will be a slightly more therapeutic, give us a little differentiator in quite a saturated market. But we really want to get into the edible space, and we'll have product on the shelf within 3 weeks for that. From warehousing our own product, we realized that a big cost for us was, or a big chunk of the profit margin was taken just through warehousing, paying third parties to warehouse our products. So we thought tactically, instead of just having a little office and everybody doing that, we'd get a warehouse and have the office in a warehouse, and we've done that. We bought vaults, which we've installed recently, and then maybe a month, 2 months ago, we got the license finally. There was a lot of bureaucratic work to get a license to be able to warehouse not just medicinal cannabis, but we also got Schedule 9, psilocybin, MDMA, DMT license as well. So that's where we're at with that. And in the last couple of months, we've long-term, we've had an idea around novel IP, novel formulation, novel dosage method for THC. And we're starting to work with academia with that. Dave will talk to that because that's his area of expertise for sure. And we've started on that. We're in the patent process with that. And that's where we're up to now. I'll hand you back to Dave. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so the product commercialization, we launched these two products, Indica Jones and Green Genie. They've gone well. And then the edibles, C3 Harmony, C3 because it's THC, CBD, and CBG, and it's harmonious. And then our multi-channel distribution strategy is in effect with everybody, Leafio, Cannabis Warehouse, iHealth, the Entourage Effect. And now that's covered the Eastern Seaboard. We've just spent a lot of time with Health House International over in WA, and we're very confident that they're going to be able to distribute for us effectively over there.
Thanks, Neil.
No worries.
I'll just talk a little bit now about our warehousing and 3PL services. As Neil mentioned, we gained our licensure from Vic Health a couple of months ago now, and we have both Schedule 4, Schedule 8, and Schedule 9 licensing at the facility that we sit in now. What that means is we can certainly store and distribute our own cannabis, which really improves our costs as well as our service model. But it also allows us to do 3PL services, which is essentially storing and distributing for other small cannabis players that are currently in the market. We're in some preliminary discussions in respect to that at the moment, but that will essentially mean we bring on another revenue stream in addition to our own products that we sell directly. It also means with MDMA and psilocybin that we're able to move into the clinical space. Australia is a very attractive part of the world to do clinical trials. There are very good government rebates in that space, and there are a lot of international companies that do significant clinical trial work in Australia. We're seeking to tap into that and particularly focus on, I guess you would call it the psychedelic market, MDMA, psilocybin, DMT, which are all currently being clinically trialed for areas such as post-traumatic stress disorder and the treatment of that. We provide warehousing, order fulfillment, as I mentioned, and we will move into clinical trials and 3PL in this coming financial year. Our fourth piece is research and development. We are in early discussions with a UK formulations expert with the intent of entering into a memorandum of understanding with himself and an Australian university to develop a novel, fast-acting pain management drug. It'll be a combination drug, both a novel formulation in conjunction with a device which we've identified, which will allow for rapid onset and treatment of pain in specific patients. We're targeting the cancer market at this point. We expect that to move ahead in the next 12 months, and for us to have a developed formulation which we're able to take into the clinic. And the idea around that is we will generate IP, which will enable clinical trials, and we'll progress that towards ARTG registration, which is essentially the TGA registration, which allows us to get the product formally approved in Australia, and potentially for us to get it under the PBS, meaning it'll be broadly used here. Just as a I guess a comparator, there's not many cannabis drugs out there which are ARTG registered. Epidiolex is one of them, which is used to treat pediatric seizures. That's $1 billion global drug at this point in time. So the market out there for cannabis products that are registered is big. In terms of our commercial strategy, we've got 3 phases. First one being commercial traction, which is essentially to expand our current range of products, which Neil alluded to, and break into the edibles market. We've got 2 flowers on the market, 1 edible, and the plan is to launch multiple more SKUs in Australia across the next 12 months with this raise. The second phase will be to develop our supply chain as a service. We've started that. We have the facility, we've got the license, we've got the vaults, which we're able to expand now quite easily. And the idea is that we will start a 3PL service, not just for other cannabis companies with our distribution, but also in the clinical supply space as well. So there's 2 prongs to that supply chain as a service. And then finally, in the longer term, we intend to develop IP, clinical development, and go to clinical trial, which, as I said, is to ultimately generate IP and to move towards ARTG registration and PBS access. In terms of how we intend to use the funds from this raise, there are 6 key areas that we're looking at, but they can broadly be broken down into growth, which is new products into the market, which will generate cash flow for us to essentially drive other parts of the business. The second piece is what I'll call marketing services, which is really about getting a medical sales liaison team up and starting to sell not only our own products, but other cannabis products into the market, which we would look to store and distribute directly from our Melbourne-based facility. And then the final piece for the crowdsource funding is to start to generate IP. We'll work on the formulation out in the UK. We'll move into manufacture to develop that novel formulation, which will be a micro-dosed product in combination with a device. And then we look to take that to clinical trial in Australia. And with that, I'll pass you back to Neil.
Okay, so finally, why do we think we're a good proposition for anybody right now? I would say proven execution. We've shown that we can bring the product to market. We brought the first one, Green Genie, and that was a success. And that's the first batch of that is, as it's expiring, is just finished selling. We've got our second SKU in and on the shelf and already going out. And our third SKU, which is really a pivot for us into the edible space, that kind of gave the market a bit of a jolt in how quickly and how strong the uptick was in demand for edible products. And I think we've moved quite nimbly into that space, and we'll probably change the products that we're going to bring in third, fourth, fifth, sixth, more towards edibles. We've got our licenses, like we've actually got those. Dave's worked incredibly hard on the last couple of years getting our Schedule 9 and Schedule 8 licenses, including MDMA, psilocybin, and DMT, which we think puts us among only a few of the players out here. The growing market demand, the first slide I showed you where the Australian market is at. There's differing information on what the size of that market is, but everybody's growth rates are pretty consistent at around 30% per annum at least. So you're seeing a doubling almost every 2.4 years or almost every 2 years in the market, and that's evident everywhere you look. Product expansion, we're looking at IP around a novel dose form, novel devices. We've got a strong background in that. Dave's a PhD chemist and he knows how to work in this space. He's got contacts in the UK that we're close with and we're working with now. In terms of revenue, we could be but we could be a viable medicinal cannabis business. We could bring in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 SKUs, and that is a very, very viable business in Australia. And I think we could be successful at that. But for us, it will give us a kind of a ground level of income while we investigate these other revenue streams, which is business to business logistics for companies such as ours. We can store their product and we can distribute their product. And then the IP, which we see as a slightly longer term, much stronger value proposition for people. And finally, we're ESIC or ESIC, that stands for Early Stage Innovation Company. There's tax incentives for people. We meet all the criteria and we've certified that we're ESIC eligible. And so that's great for that. I think that's everything. If we want to get back to Mel.
Yeah, I think that's the end of the presentation. Thanks for listening. We'll hand you back over to Mel.
Thank you so much, Neil. Thank you, David. Did you just want to shut your name? Perfect. That was an excellent presentation. It's really interesting to hear about all your progressions in your business so far. And there's a couple of questions that come through. What's behind your name?
I think we did argue about that for a while. And
Yeah.
I think Dave settled on it. It was a Celtic, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a Nordic word initially. It means you're taking me back a bit now, but it kind of means pure, clean, health. And it's a bit of a link to where I was born as well. I was born in the north of England in Newcastle, which is traditionally invaded by the Vikings. So we've got a very kind of Viking culture there, and so it kind of ties into that. Plus, I liked it. It was catchy and it's easy to remember. And the .com was available.
Very good. Yeah. There's another question here from Adam who says there is so many products on the market, about 1,000 last count, maybe more. How can a new player hope to get any traction in what is already a saturated market?
It very much is a saturated market at the moment. It is, however, a rapidly growing market. So as Neil mentioned, it'll be $4 billion, I think, by the end of the 2030. So I do think there is opportunities for new players to enter. I think we're going to have to differentiate, and we do differentiate. We are very patient focused. We are very compliance focused. I think everybody out there has probably seen a lot of fines being thrown around by the TJ for companies which aren't able to meet those standards. We do, and I have experience in meeting those standards globally from my pharmaceutical background. So I think we are differentiated, and we are seeking to bring in differentiated products. The IP that we're working on will be, if we can demonstrate and get it into clinical trial, it will be a groundbreaking product and first of its kind. So I do think there is opportunity to still break into this space and differentiate.
And even in the regular market, Mel, we chose to go very craft grown. We spent a lot of time sourcing the product. I think the first one, Green Ginny, we even listed the terpenes on the label there, like to make a point that this is top tier product and it's high in terpenes. There's a lot of, even at that point, there was a lot of rubbish. Well, not rubbish. No. a lot of
there's a lot of cheap cannabis out there. It's not craft grown, and whilst we can't claim therapeutic benefit for TGA reasons, the indications out there and the research out there is clearly stating that product which is craft grown with strong terpene levels and a number of other cannabinoids within it do produce an entourage effect. So we are targeting the top end of that market. Now, craft grown is only about 5% of the entire market, but 5% of a $4 billion market is still a sizable chunk. So we are targeting, we're patient focused, we're compliant, and we think that gives us an edge.
And for the edibles, the recreational market wants a 40 milligram edible, but we have to make a product that people are going to, GPs are going to prescribe. So we did a 10 milligrams THC, 10 milligrams CBD, but we put 5 milligrams CBG on it as well. And that's organic, and it's pectin based, so it's vegan friendly. So we're just trying to hit all the differentiators, just stay in the top tier of products.
There's a question here asking, how did you meet?
Each other?
Yeah.
Soccer.
Whichever.
Yes.
The one with the round ball.
I
we
love
both
that.
at a very low level played that on Sundays, and that was like 25 years ago or something like that.
So we were considerably younger then, and we're still able to run around and play soccer. Those days are behind us now.
Yeah. So you've known each other for a long time, which is a good sign. Where is your warehouse located?
Well, we're staying dark, but we're in South Melbourne, but you won't be able to find, I mean, as part of our security protocol.
Right.
I don't think we've got it listed anywhere.
No, it's not listed anywhere. But yeah, we're down in South Melbourne. We've got a facility down here. It's capable of storing at the minute around about 20,000 units of cannabis, and we plan to expand that storage. We will be able to store up to around 150,000 units in the current facility, and the aim is to fill it.
We've got 4 vaults in here already, and we're going to get another couple soon.
Do you have multiple suppliers to prevent supply constraints? How do you maintain the quality of supplies?
So we have in place with all of our suppliers, we have contracts in place for exclusive supply into Australia. We have agreed volumes as part of those contracts, which we forecast on an annual basis around growth, and we're in discussion with them. We've got great relationships at this point. The supply that we have is good. The relationships we have are good, and we have all of that contracted. So, that's probably one of my areas of expertise, which is running global supply chains in big pharma. Probably far more complex than what we have right now, running multiple SKUs into multiple countries. So I think we've got a good plan. I think we've got good contracts, and I think we've got good relationships with our suppliers. So it's not something we foresee at this point as a significant risk.
Are you looking at oil?
No. We see it as, we know it's still the biggest segment in Australia. It is, however, very saturated, and the margins are being somewhat eroded. My personal view on this is, I think oil was the first product to market. It's easy to formulate, but it's not necessarily well received by the patients. We are seeing oil now being eroded. Edibles are now the second, if you look at 2025, particularly use TGA data, edibles are now the second largest category in the country, and I suspect it will overtake oil in the very near future. So edibles is the space that we're looking in at the moment for the current market. But as I've mentioned, we are looking to develop a novel device drug product combination, which will be, as from the IP searches we've done, which will be a world first. Any
plans to move growing or sourcing your plants from Australia rather than Canada?
Yeah, definitely.
We'd love to. We would love to buy Australian cannabis.
It's getting better, definitely.
It's getting a lot. It's improved. I mean, the Canadians are the world experts in it, or were. Just like the Europeans were the world experts in making wine, and now Australia's taking that space as well. So we're catching up really quickly in Australia. Prices are now looking really attractive in Australia. We have had some discussions with indoor growers in Australia. We just didn't feel the timing was quite right. But I think with this raise, that's something that we will be looking at in more detail. We do manufacture out here, so we do pack in Australia, we test in Australia, and our next batch of product, which are the edibles, are fully manufactured in Australia as well. So, we want to support local manufacturing. We're just not quite there with flower supply yet.
I think our third flower SKU, strong possibility would be Australia.
We need to introduce you to the People's Plant that we did a raise on.
Yeah, that's great.
There might be some investors on this call actually that are invested in the People's Plant, so that would be a lovely synergy.
I think it's a good investment. I really do.
Yeah. You've mentioned that you're licensed for MDMA. What are your plans on for that? What do you for that?
Clinical.
Yeah. So I have a couple of contacts, and I'm in discussion with a company actually based out of Canada, another one in the UK, who clinically trial psychedelics for the treatment of post-traumatic stress. I think, as I mentioned earlier, Australia is a really viable and attractive place to do clinical trials. Getting ethics approval is much simpler than, say, in Europe or even the US, and the government is looking to grow this sector. And so we're looking to partner with those kinds of companies. The idea is we would import, we would manage the importation licenses, we would manage the clinical supply, we would work with the clinics to get product to the market. And so that's a part of the business, which, whilst at the moment we're not generating revenue, it is a potentially a very good revenue stream moving forward.
What is the strategic plan for product sales and forecast? We're not talking about forecasting. Sorry, everyone. We're not talking about financial forecasting in this webinar. That sort of information will be actually in the offer document, all the financials. So at the moment, just to let everybody know, we're in the expression of interest phase for Nadarra Health's CSF raise. We go live on the offer next week, midday, Tuesday the 24th. That's when the offer document will be available to potential investors, and all that information that you require in terms of financials for Nadarra Health will be in that offer document. I have a question. Tell me a bit more about CBG. I know about THC, but so that's the differentiator that Nadarra Health is looking at. So can you talk to me a bit more about that? Because I know about THC, I know about CBG.
Yeah.
CBG.
So there are literally, and I was reading a paper the other day, there are literally cannabinoids being discovered on an almost daily basis. The average cannabis product has something like 2,000 different compounds in there. Not all of them are cannabinoids. Some of those are terpenes, but many of them have a potential therapeutic benefit. So CBG is one of the minor cannabinoids. It's the research into it is quite early at this point in terms of clinical research. It does appear that it may be beneficial for the treatment of things like anxiety, potentially for the treatment of or the management of pain as well. It's a non-psychedelic, so unlike THC, it's not psychoactive, which again is potentially a real benefit, particularly for people who have to continue work or have to drive, etc. It does mean that there are real opportunities there. But look, it's early phase. We think it's worth including in our product as a differentiator, and we think that this area will grow. CBG and various other cannabinoids.
CBN is a big one.
CBN's starting to take off.
It's cannabidiol, I think it's called. It's CBG.
Cannabidiol, yes.
Yeah.
But the research is early. I think the fact that this entire industry has been under prohibition until really the last 10 years has really stopped the progress of cannabis as a medicine and research for cannabis as a medicine. I think academia is now catching up, but it's still very early. But I think we will find that other cannabinoids are very useful from a medicinal perspective as that research progresses. And we'd like to be part of that. We'd like to be part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So why did you decide to go for crowdsource funding for your capital raise?
Well, we looked at it a while ago, and then we didn't bother. We didn't proceed with it. We did talk to banks and people like that, and that's okay because we're turning over money and they would loan money. But there's a lot of like pearl clutching, really, from as soon as you mention the word cannabis, like they can't understand that it's, you know, it's legal
a
products,
medicine.
and we're a legitimate company and
It's a
everything.
medicine.
But it just seemed like an efficient way, really, to raise money and also to interact with the, you know, with the youth, or the customer, the clients, the patients, really, as well. We're hoping that we'll have a list of people who've invested in us that we can keep up to date with, you know, our products, what we're doing, anything like that. You know, it's good in that way as well for us.
I think so. You know, my personal journey. I've been a patient in the past, and you know, managed pain with this product. You know, as a patient, I think it's an incredible product. And you know, we like to give people the opportunity to buy into it. We like the idea of patients being part of our journey.
I mean, you had, I mean, Dave went through cancer with opioids and all the negative aspects of that. He's lived that experience, and
I think that the joke is that, you know, if the cancer doesn't get you, the cure will. And I think there's a real opportunity to help patients in this space with cannabinoid therapy, and that is the area we'll be targeting when we take product to clinical trial.
That's amazing. What about export? You touched on that, but is that the next?
Yeah. It's not next for us, but longer term. I mean, the UK is big now, and we've obviously got, you know, a footprint there.
Germany.
Personally, Germany is going well. So Europe, Portugal's legal. The market is definitely, France is changing. So the market is definitely evolving over there. They're probably a little bit behind Australia, but yeah, we would like to get over there. And for all the reasons we mentioned before, the GMP practices and all the things that cause us headaches day in, day out in terms of regulation here, does give Australia a good reputation globally for safe and effective product. And that's very marketable.
And I think that's important as well. You know, we have a quality management system which we've developed, which is fully compliant with all global regulations. So we can supply our product anywhere in the world compliantly. And you know, we plan to invest as well in some of our systems with this crowdsource fundraise. We will be moving into digitization of our ERP system as an example. So compliance is important, and I think we've got a really good, strong position around compliance. Just out of interest, we did just sign an NDA in the last week with a major European player, and we're in it's very early phase discussions around how we can potentially partner in that space. Our ideal will be is to potentially break into that EU market with that partner, but it is very early phase discussions at this point.
What about your exit strategy? Have you had any thoughts about that? Is there one?
I mean, there is one. Obviously, we're driven, you know, by passion and personal experience. So we would definitely like to get the IP through and evolved and happening. But you know, if we were bought out at that point where it was happening and needed probably more capability than we have between us, or whatever size the team is by that point, then yeah, we would sell it.
Yeah.
Move on, but it's a minimum 3-5 years away. 5 probably more.
Yeah, I would suggest that it's 3 to 5 years away. At which point we would have hoped to have fairly well advanced IP, fairly well advanced clinical trials, a suite of products, you know, and potentially be planning for some kind of IPO. So you know, if offers were to come in at that point, we'd certainly take a look at them. But our intent right now is to drive growth of the business.
There's a question here. How are you differentiating yourselves against other 3PL services like BS3's cold chain?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is difficult to differentiate with 3PL. Our plan is to move into the 4PL space. Nobody else does that in Australia. We think there is a real, the discussions we've had with other small cannabis suppliers is, you know, whilst they've got good products out there, good craft products, which we would onboard carefully, they don't have the ability to interact with the market. Our intent, as I mentioned earlier, is to bring on a small MSL, but we would use that also as a 4PL service. So that would really differentiate us. Everybody else out there at the moment is really selling and moving product, storing and moving product. we'll be out there selling product as well, and selling product for some of the smaller players. So we think that's a really attractive proposition, and again allows us to really demand a premium for our services.
I think that we might wrap it up there. Have you got anything more that you'd like to say to the guests that are attending today?
Look, thank you for attending. We really appreciate your interest. We really appreciate you being interested in coming on board with Nadarra. Please reach out to us directly if you have any questions through the Birchal site. You know, we hope you invest. We think we've got a great story. We think we've got real potential to grow, not only in Australia but overseas. We think we've got some great ideas around generating IP and getting products onto the ARTG, and we'd love you to come along for that journey.
Well, we're really happy to have you both on board. We're really excited about your crowdfund raise for next week. So as I said before, to all the potential investors on the line, the offer document will be available on the site at midday Tuesday next week, but please get your EOIs in before then so you can make the most of the late payment terms and to get your shares while they're hot so they don't run out and you miss out, because you don't want to miss out. Thanks again, guys. It's terrific business and we're thrilled to have you on board with Birchal, and good luck for next week.
Thank you, Mel.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.